spent over 40 years revolutionizing the way people think about soil, food, and the relationship between the two. He grew up on a farm in Somerset, studied at Cambridge, and has since built a global following close to 1 million people through his books, YouTube channel, and his work at Homeacres, his garden and teaching space in Somerset. His method is called No Dig. His philosophy is disarmingly simple. Stop fighting nature and start feeding it. Charles, welcome to the Wild Kitchen podcast.
Thank you very much, Tiffany.
You know, I've been following your work for quite some time. You've obviously been at it for many, many years. I have a number of your books, and I just recently picked up these guys here.
Right.
Really been enjoying them. I love how you take something that can seem complex. I've read lots of books about composting, and I don't know why it always has to be so complicated, but reading especially this compost book, my goodness, it's like, it doesn't have to be so complicated. You take brown material and green material and you mix it up in a certain way, and you kind of stir it every now and then. It's refreshing. Is there a reason, like, did you see a need for that sort of communication with people on gardening?
Yeah, totally. Because when I started out, I had the same impression as you were saying. It sounds difficult and more complex than it needs to be. I mean, that's what I found out since. So over the years, I've spent time stripping out the unnecessary jobs, the details you don't need, and discover really that most gardening work, for want of a better word, is actually simple. So my mission is to reveal that simplicity. And in fact, someone made an interesting comment on YouTube. They said, you're the opposite of most teachers who actually try to keep their pupils a little bit in the dark, because that gives them more power. And if you teach somebody everything that you know, they're going to go off and do it, which is what I want, actually. I don't think, from what I see, I think even maybe unconsciously, a lot of people have, either they don't understand the subject enough to teach it properly. I think that's what a lot of it is, actually. So therefore, they're just saying by rote what they've heard of before, and you sort of rather complex how to do things that have rules and principles that are not valid, actually.
Yeah, it's watching your videos on YouTube. You're disarmingly humble. You walk around your garden and you talk about stuff, and it doesn't get blown up into some big thing. You're like, hey, we're gonna look at some lettuce, and this is what we're doing, and anyone can do it. And I mean,
well, that's exactly it's the feeling I want to give, and I do get that nice feedback. It's what I want. They say, or later on they'll say, yeah, I've had great results doing these methods. You've simplified things that I didn't understand before, and now it's working for me, and it wasn't before. So yeah, that's music to my ears. When I hear that, I think I'm going on the right track.
Well, I guess, at the end of the day, more people growing food is a good thing and is a goal.
Yeah, at the moment, I would say it's so vital, because the governments are pushing us to be more and more kind of slaves in the system, really. And if you can grow your own food, you have some degree of independence, not all, but it's a vital part of it. And it's freedom. It's some people say it's the no-dig revolution. I wouldn't go quite that far, but I kind of know what they mean by it. They say that.
Well, maybe now's a great time to introduce people to the concept if they haven't heard of it, because I've talked to friends about it, and they're like, so what? You just like put compost on the ground, then you just plant things in it? And they're like, why? You don't have to dig? Because it is a revolutionary concept that I live in a farming area, and this time of year it's just tractors going back and forth over the fields, tilling and planting potatoes and disturbing the soil. So maybe, obviously it's a...
Well, you touched on two different things there.
Okay.
One is the difference between farming and gardening, and that's a big one, because I'm not claiming I have an answer to farmers who need to till 1,000 acres or whatever. What I'm doing is gardening on a small scale, but it's still for growing a lot of food. It's very intensive, and No-dig is very simple, leaving the soil undisturbed and feeding the soil life with mulch of some kind. Personally, I prefer compost, but compost is a mulch. Any organic matter on the surface is a mulch. So that's how you're feeding soil life, and that helps to keep the soil open, aerated, and full of goodness. But to try and scale that one up to farms, like big fields of 100 acres, they haven't got cardboard to smother the weeds or compost in that quantity. But also, they're not growing crops of such high value that we're growing. Vegetables are kind of specialist plants. They've been highly bred to give a lot of delicious food. Don't get me wrong there, but it's something we have to devote ourselves to, quite full time. Whereas a farmer he's growing lower value crops like soybeans and wheat and barley, which we still need, but they're the kind of things that you can mechanize. So that's why it's different. And I'm actually giving a talk at the Groundswell Festival this summer about exactly this, land language. There's a lot of confusion because people tend to say, no dig, why can't you no dig on a farm scale? Well, no, you can't. Not when you're trying to grow beautiful, intensive vegetables.
And mostly what you're growing, you started really with a lot of salad greens and things like that.
Yeah, I mean that's actually my main output in value terms. Probably about 2/3 of what I sell is salad leaves, mixed salad bags of mixed salad leaves, which are seasonal. So I'm not under any pressure to try and force something if it's out of season. At the moment, the salad bags contain probably 90% lettuce actually, but lettuce is bang in season, and the leaves are really sweet at the moment. And then to that we add, actually it's probably 80%, pea shoots. So I grow a lot of peas for shoots. We keep picking the shoots. A bit of spinach, which actually will soon finish, and a little bit of chard for colour, and some herbs like dill and basil and coriander maybe. So yeah, it's a range of flavours. Sorrel is another one. And through the season, if you look at my salad bag in say September, it'll be very different. There won't be much lettuce. There'll be more chicory, endive, Chinese cabbage, mustards, rocket, and so on. So I love that flow, and I think my customers do. That they get a taste of every season as it comes along in the salad bag, and has been my main sell because there's profit in that. Not a lot. I mean, just enough to pay the wage really. But vegetables is harder, and to make a living from growing and selling vegetables is that are not salads anyways is actually pretty hard. I would say if anyone's doing that, I'd take my hat off to you.
Was there a period of educating your customers on the seasonality of greens? I mean, people are used to going to the supermarket and buying a big romaine lettuce, and to show people that fall your greens are probably going to be a little spicier or whatever it is.
Well, I think the main education comes from what you offer. I mean, they're buying these bags of salad through the year and hopefully noticing that. Because I don't do much direct selling. That takes time. That's the other thing. Time is so precious. So I'm selling wholesale to a big shop in Bruton, my local town, and also to a big pub in Backham, another local town. And those two outlets between them take 80% of what I grow actually. That's just two harvests, well, 4 harvests a week, 2 for each, and a bit elsewhere, some for us. But I don't have contact with the customers. I can't tell them.
Okay. Yeah. That would be a whole other operation for you, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I do through my writing. I've got a newsletter with a lot of subscribers. I certainly point out these things there.
And I find a lot of people say, they look at people that are successfully growing large quantities of food, and they're like, oh, well, it's because they have 10 acres or they have 50 acres or whatever it is. Yeah. Your garden is not a massive space. It's a third of an acre. Is that right?
It's a half now. Half of an acre. That includes the paths as well as the beds. That's the total crop surface out of homeacres is just over an acre and a half. So yeah, it's really intensive. And from that last year, I don't know how this translates to Canadian dollars, but in pounds sterling, it was £42,000 worth of output from that half acre. So I'm happy with that.
If someone were to look at feeding their family, I mean, I from what I read in the papers, food costs are probably you guys are seeing the increases in England, like we are seeing here in Canada, and people complain about the cost of food, but they're comparing a bag of, pre-washed, grown somewhere far away. Of
Yeah.
course, that's expensive, but people have the ability and they have the power to grow food in their own space, as limited as it is.
That's where no dig is so good, because you can easily scale up or scale down. And you can scale down for what I'm doing to, I've got one patch where I do trials for it, so I'm recording the harvest. And this one, the total area is 63 square meters roughly. And last year that gave just over 600 kilograms of food.
My God.
So nearly 10 kilograms per square meter. And if you think how many kilograms you need in a year, and that includes things like squash, potatoes, leeks, spinach, lettuce, salads, onions, quite a wide range of produce. And in fact, the potatoes that we harvested from there last July, we're still eating. We had some for lunch today. That's in late May. So, I'm talking about food and the squash, actually. I've still got some of them. So it's certainly possible, I would say, on not a big area. You might be surprised how small even, if you get organised about it. And it's actually much more efficient to do that, to crop a smaller area very intensively and with repeat cropping of the same space in the same year, rather than have a bigger area that actually takes more work to maintain. So you've got to keep it weeded and everything like that. So I'm concentrating my efforts on a small space, and like to teach about that.
And you're doing this all without herbicides and pesticides and
Absolutely.
all the sprays. It's all organic.
Oh, God, yeah. I mean, I'm not organic certified because it's too many hoops to jump through. I don't have time, and it costs £500 a year. But I don't have the need either, really, because my customers kind of know what I'm doing, and they can come and have a look at the garden anytime. I have 2 open days a year. But yeah, I mean, I think that's the beauty of no dig. You have fewer weeds, so there's certainly no need for herbicides. We hoe and hand weed a bit. And then, it doesn't take long, though. Plants are healthier, so I actually suffer very few pests. There's one product I use which is for caterpillars on brassica leaves, and it's Bacillus thuringiensis, which was discovered by Louis Pasteur in 1877, I think. And it's just to soil bacteria. So, there's no harm in that one, but I find it's a big saving in terms of not having caterpillar damage. Only between July and October, and only on the brassicas. So everything else, I'm just doing naturally. I don't use any slug pellets, and just nothing.
And you're using a lot of fabric and things like that over top of the plants to protect
Yeah,
them as well.
covers are really useful, both initially, like in the spring that's really just passed now. There's cover we call fleece. I don't know, it might be called rime or something like that.
I think we say fleece too, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so it's really light, and I just put it directly on plants, and they push it up. What it does is it keeps that early warmth in, and then we're switching now where the vegetables need it to mesh, which is more little squares of nylon, to keep out, for example, carrot root fly and cabbage root fly, anything else that aphids maybe.
Yeah.
So, yeah, covers are useful.
One of the things with your work is that you're meticulous about recording things. It's for someone that makes it simple. There is like an accessible scientific edge to your work. Like you'll have one, control that is a dig garden, and then a no dig, and you compare it, and it's you very nicely balance that of like, this is what I'm doing, and it's not a published scientific study or anything like that, but you are showing that your work you're doing is much more effective.
Yeah, I mean, I would never claim to be scientific in the modern sense, where you need random replicated plots of ground and peer review studies, all that kind of thing. I can't do that because I'm not a research station. But yeah, I've got these 2 beds. One is dig, one is no dig, and they receive the same amount of compost, and they have exactly the same plantings. So the only difference is one is dug and one is no dig. We dig the dig bed once a year in December usually, put the compost in a trench and keep digging that over. So the compost is buried or incorporated to about 6 to 8 inches up to 15-20 centimeters, whereas on the no dig bed it takes a lot less time than that. Just spread the compost on top. So already you have a big time saving, and then the takeaway from that in terms of results, I weigh all the harvest, that the no-dig bed over 13 years now is 11% ahead in terms of harvest. Every year it gives more. This year it started in the same vein. We've had 10.5 kilos from the no-dig bed, and 7.5 kilos from the dig bed. That's up to the end of May. Things like early spinach and lettuce and radish and turnip. So I'm just seeing that same pattern. But I'm keen to keep it going because I think there's value in the long-term trial, partly because also we've had the soil analysed for organic matter content, or carbon content, I should say, to be precise. And so this guy took away 2 samples, and he said, wow, he said they're both really high. The dig bed is 14% carbon, which is way more than most agricultural soils, and that goes back to my point about, this is not farming, this is intensive gardening.
Yeah.
And the no-dig bed is 18%. So somewhere along the road, the dig bed has lost 4% of its organic matter or carbon. And I can only think it's during the process of cultivation, turning the soil up and exposing soil to air, and then some of the carbon, the organic matter, meets the oxygen in the air and turns to CO2 and escapes. So, that's a big loss to soil because carbon is the building block of fertility, and to have 4% less for doing all the extra work, it's like, no dig, no brainer, really.
Yeah.
I actually I had my book reviewed. I was really chuffed. I don't know if you've heard of the Financial Times.
Yep.
And it's the last place I'd have thought would be reviewing my book, because it's all about economics and markets and all that kind of thing. But they do have a gardening section on a Saturday, and they reviewed my book, and that was the headline: no dig, no brainer.
Really? That's amazing.
Really pleased.
Well, it's all over the place. People talk about sequestering carbon in soil and cattle and all these conversations about carbon, and it just seems like you've developed a technique that grows more food, builds the soil. Is there any proof that the vegetables growing in that soil are better for you, a higher nutritional content? Have you had any of that looked at?
No, I'd love to know that. It's a hard one though to measure, I feel, because we have so little understanding, I reckon, of our own digestion process and how well we can handle all these different, say, nutrients in food, and the balance of nutrients. It's not only about there's X amount of copper and Z amount of zinc, but how they relate to each other, what form they're in. And I'm pretty suspicious of test results, to be honest. I've had my soil tested a few times, and once, about 10 years ago, the result came back. They were looking at the biology, and they said, your soil is low in fungi, that needs correcting. I just said, well, that can't be right. And I was looking at these super healthy plants, so I don't know where they got that from. Huh. But I would say, what like, for example, we get pointers. So the 2 trial beds I mentioned, we harvest lettuce every week, and the lettuce plants look quite similar. You think, well, the harvest will surely be about the same. But from the no-dig bed, it weighs more, and it's like the leaves are slightly denser. So then you think, well, that's probably an indication of more nutrition. There's less water. It's more dry matter in there, from what I can tell anyway. We've got little pointers like that anyway. That are interesting.
Oh, that's really interesting. Now, I read that you grew up on a dairy farm. You had no interest in continuing that. You went off to school. Your parents didn't want you to get into farming, and then somehow you came back to it. Was that? Did you always kind of want to stay in that world, or did you have intentions to go off and do something with your geography degree?
No, I didn't know, actually. I was all over the place, really, as a late teenager, up to the age of about 20. All I knew was I didn't want to farm, and I luckily had an older brother who could take on the farm from my father. And so, I was in a great position. I was kind of free agent, you could say. My father hoped that I'd maybe join the Navy or become a politician or something. I was pretty bright. I went to Cambridge. I had the possibility of doing that. But what I saw at Cambridge University made me think, God, I do not want to be in this corporate world. It wasn't my scene. And I love being outside. And so I was trying to work out a way of, combining an outdoor life with on the land, without using machinery, without big cows. That they don't appeal to me either. And then I discovered market gardening, organic market gardening. I got really interested in organic when I was about 20, became a vegetarian as well. And it all kind of tied together suddenly. That was 1981. And 1982 I started, and ever since then I've been doing it, but in different locations actually. But it's been my life's work.
And your parents, I'm assuming, we're okay with you coming back into the fold.
They thought it was a rather odd thing to do, because I was doing it all by hand. So
Yeah.
in 1982-3, I created beds, raised beds on 1.5 acres. I was doing it large scale in those days, because I didn't have the high value salad crops to fall back on. I needed volume, and my father was just thought it was all a bit crazy, but he didn't say too much. He was quite a quiet man, but he did, and he never said much to me actually. He said to my older brother after my first year, he said, "Oh, that seems to be working." Yeah, praise indeed.
Yeah, I was gonna say high praise.
Yeah, and I was vegetarian. I'm not a strict vegetarian now, but I do eat mostly vegetables. But in the 80s, I was just vegetarian. I was eating dairy produce from the farm. But that also gave me an incentive, because I want to grow the food I eat, and I can see the health and vigor of these lovely plants. So that fueled my desire and ambition as well.
And you were, I don't know if the first, but certainly like way, like possibly decades ahead of other places where I've seen it. We call it CSA, the community supported agriculture, the
Yes,
sort of
so,
box system. So
yeah.
how did that come to you to totally, because that totally flips the script on
Well,
how
yeah,
farmers do
I
their
was
things.
maybe the first person, because in 1983, I wasn't sure how I was going to sell my produce in my first year, 83. And I put a sign up in the local town, Castle Clary, saying if anybody would like a selection of seasonal produce, whatever I've got every week, I'll supply it.
Yeah,
And that concept was a new one.
yeah,
And I actually got 6 people signed up for that.
that's amazing.
And then with every year that passed, the numbers increased. It was something like 10 in the second year. But I was still selling a lot wholesale to London outlets. A van would come twice a week to collect, for example. Because by 1986, I had 7.5 acres. So it was quite a big market garden, all no dig. And by 1988, I was doing about 100 boxes a week. So yeah, that was pretty new. And then quite a few people saw the potential of that and took it on themselves, which was delightful. It's nothing like being copied. That's a sincere form of flattery, as people say. And that really kicked off, I think, the box movement. And then you got Riverford and all of that as well, which is still going strong. And they do something like 55,000 a week now, big fleets of lorries. So yeah, it's a durable way, successful way of selling vegetables.
You do that, and then you think, I'm going to start smuggling emeralds.
Sorry, start with.
You want to start smuggling emeralds.
Oh golly, that. Well, yeah, I mean, I have had a bit of a colourful life in that way, because
what drove you to go to Africa?
I mean, just to give the background to that, I have to
Yeah.
say, my father died in 1988. He was very late marrying. He was 82 when I was like 28, and that's when he died at that age. And he left me some money, and I was finding the market garden in my late 20s actually quite a slog for not earning a huge amount. And I bit the bullet, or was tempted by this money, and took some time out. I found some people who wanted to look after the farm, and I just gave it to them. I said, just do it, look after it, and see what you can earn, because I know it's not easy to make money. And I went to Africa actually. I'd met an organic grower in the 89 who had an organic holding, but he'd been, believe it or not, he'd been a minister in Kenneth Kaunda's government in Zambia. And he therefore had contacts in Zambia, and he said to me, you go out there, go and show them what you can do.
Yeah.
He thought it would help them. So I said, okay, and got on the plane. It was something like February 1991. And even while I was on the plane, believe it or not, the Kenneth Kaunda lost the election. So I was turning up in Zambia with all the wrong letters of introduction, because they were from the deposed Prime Minister, and was viewed with some suspicion. I actually struggled to find any, I wanted to do something. I want to do some gardening here show you what I can do. And I found a remote village in southern province of Zambia, not far from Livingston Falls, and a very friendly schoolmaster, and he said, "Yeah, you can make our school a garden." And so I set to, and I did it for about 2 months, and it was shaping up nicely. And then I got a message from the district commissioner, who's like middle rank of bureaucracy there.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that's nice. He didn't say why he wanted to see me, he just said he wanted to see me. So I got on my bike, which is how I got to this remote village, and actually left quite a few of my things there because I thought I was just going to go and maybe be congratulated, saying, "Hey, Mr. Dowding, you're doing a great job." Instead of that, when I got into his office, there were 3 of them, and they're looking very severe. And they said, "So, what are you doing there?" And I said, "Well, I'm making a garden." They said, "No, you're not. You're smuggling emeralds." And I said, "What are you talking about?" And I didn't realise, but that village I happened to end up in was near to an emerald mine in Zambia, and they put 2 and 3 together, you could say. And so basically kicked me out of the country. I had to leave pretty quick.
Oh my gosh.
But Mervyn, the guy who set me up there, found me somewhere to go in Kenya. So I had actually then had 2 months in Kenya, up in Kitale, which is near Uganda, and that was a really good experience. And I learned a lot there. And my takeaway from my time in Africa was actually it's pretty arrogant to go there and think you can teach them in their own country. I learned more from them. And I learned that my place was in Europe, actually. So that helped sort of settle that wanderlust.
Yes, the European predicament.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've noticed that you've had a number of gardens, challenging soils. Was that an intentional choice, or you just sort of stumbled into?
For another part of the long story.
Yeah.
I ended up on a farm in France because I had enough money to buy a small farm, and it was 40 acres. I bought it for £40,000,
Wow.
which is really not a lot looking back on it. And that had a house and barns and everything. But it was, horrible soil. And that's one reason it was so cheap. I didn't realise that at the time. It was what the local farmers called boulben, which is white clay, and soggy in winter, rock hard in summer. But believe it or not, I grew lovely vegetables there, and no-dig worked really well. And this is where I was really starting. I was no-dig from the beginning, 1982, but I wasn't really talking about it because there wasn't much interest in soil in those days. It was more interested in the fact that I was organic. So that's what I used to promote. And I got certified bio in France and started selling vegetables in the local market, and they would prove really popular, and I could sell them for more money. And in fact, the local farmers were quite impressed. And within about 10 years, most of them had gone bio as well from seeing that. And lovely old heirloom tomatoes and that kind of thing, enormous sweet fruit, but very thin skin. So they couldn't be sold in the supermarket because they wouldn't travel. But in a local market, that's what markets should be selling. Sort of things that supermarkets can't handle, but there's a lot of vegetables like that. So that was 6 years of my life there, and I got married there, had children, and then decided to move back to the UK.
Oh. And you talk about challenges dealing with the supermarkets and selling to the supermarkets.
Yeah.
Was it just like strict requirements on like you say when you talked about tomatoes, like you need to have tomatoes that last a week in the refrigerator and turn to mush so people don't care and buy them, or what were you dealing with?
It is that. It's all the things the customer really doesn't want, actually, but it's meeting their criterion of what's sellable and also looks nice. I had 2 experiences in the 80s of sending off big van loads, like serious quantities of lettuce in one case, which they'd been taking for several weeks already. And then suddenly I got a message from them saying, we had to throw all the last lot of lettuce away because we found slugs. At that time, this was head lettuce, and I always had a few slugs in my head lettuce, which is why I struggled to sell it to chefs, because they didn't like slugs either. But, it had been working, and I think what it was, they'd overbought, but then with all the whip hand, I realised how powerless I was as a grower in the face of that kind of response. And, all that was thrown away, zero money for all the work we put into it. And then the second one happened, which was leaks. And again, strict criteria. One was that length of the leak had to be no less than something and no more than something else. And the phone call I got at that time was, your leaks were too long, we threw the whole lot away. That kind of thing.
Oh my gosh.
No, I decided, right, that's it, no more supermarket. I can't afford this. And that's added fuel to my fire of doing more boxes and doing a local market in Castle Carey. In fact, this was back in '89. And I had to really fight to get my pitch there because local markets in those days in the UK were not a thing. They've become more of it now. And the local shopkeepers were not that happy about it because they felt it was competition. Then what they'd noticed was, wow, it pulled people into the town. So actually they thawed out once they realised that. And, I think that's the thing about markets, isn't it? It brings the town to life on market day, and you get lots of people coming in.
Absolutely. We've got one in our town here, and it's incredible. You're not only bringing together people in the community to buy local things, but you're bringing other people outside of the community that aren't aware of your town and all the great things in it. And it's a massive event, and it's grown like crazy. It's incredible to see people get on board and get excited about this stuff, and then they see, like, they buy your tomato with the thin skin, and they're like, well, I don't want to eat this garbage that's grown in a hothouse in Mexico anymore because it doesn't taste good. And it raises their expectations and what they're willing to put up with. And I think it's nice to see people are finally getting to the point where they are okay not eating strawberries 12 months of the year. It warms my heart to see people, I'm not going to buy that. That's garbage. Why am I spending a premium for something that's going to taste terrible? I'm going to wait until June, and it's going to be the best thing I'm going to eat. And I'm going to get really excited about that. It's really nice to see.
So right. I mean, going with the season has so many benefits like that. Like just today, funnily enough, I saw the first strawberry ripe in my garden. And obviously I haven't eaten a strawberry since last July. Yeah. And wow, I'm so excited to actually try that over bird doesn't eat it before I get there. But yeah, it's that level of excitement, almost fever pitch, that you miss out if you're just buying 12 months of the year, everything. And tomatoes, I so look forward to the first tomatoes because although we preserve some and dry them over the winter, it's not the same as a fresh one.
No, it's and you also learn to appreciate the dried tomato in the winter because of the promise and expectation of that fresh, warm tomato out of the garden in August.
It's a memory. It's certainly a lovely memory. Yeah.
And you talk about eating fava beans, and when I read it, I smiled because I remember I didn't grow up eating fava beans. I remember the first time I had one, and it was like something clicked in my brain. I was like, this is amazing because this is terrible. I shouldn't say it's terrible. It's a different experience having it dried, or those big starchy overgrown dried fava beans. Having a fresh fava bean popped out of the pod, it was amazing. Like it just, I'm interested to hear your experience and what that was for you.
Well, that was when I was only about 15, and it was my first conscious awareness of the beautiful flavour of vegetables. My mother cooked a lunch every day, and for some reason, it just something clicked in my brain at that point. She served fava beans, we call them broad beans, quite often with the lunch. But maybe that day they were super fresh from the pod or something. She grew some vegetables in the garden, and I just remember it. I still remember it now. The flavours, a great way to make memories, isn't it? So many memories we have are related to scent and flavour. And so once that dawned on me, I thought, right, I've got to check this out. I've got to explore vegetables more. And I still get excited when the first beans come, the fava beans, and it will be in about a week now. I can't wait. I'll cook them with a little bit of mint, serve them with perhaps a bit of butter. And it's a delicacy, isn't it? It's like caviar, truly.
It is. It's funny. Growing up, summer is always my favorite as a kid. You run around in the summer, you don't have school, and it's probably an obvious choice for a lot of kids. But as I got older, it's spring, and it's the promise of all these new, fresh things going. And I get like I've got asparagus growing in my garden. We've got wild asparagus that grows near us, and going out and picking the fresh asparagus and the peas in the garden, and it's just. Because it's so fleeting, because some of these early spring vegetables are, if you put them in your fridge for a week, they're not going to be the same thing. It's like you go and you pick it and you immediately...
Interesting, isn't it? This week I had first harvest for selling of carrots. This is outdoor grown carrots. And also of beetroot and of Florence fennel and of kohlrabi. And what a selection of flavours in that lot.
I bet.
Brilliant, because it's the first ones, I think they almost taste better.
Yeah.
And I just love it because we're going forwards now. We'll have one after the other. Like next week, it could be the first peas, and then there'll be some. I'm trying to think what will come next. Maybe, peas of all kinds, including sugar peas,
Nice.
broccoli, calabrese, cauliflower, cabbage, the new spring cabbage, after we've had the winter cabbage. So yeah, lots of excitement at this time of year.
Yeah, it's great, and it's neat to see. I've got kids, and my son especially was not a vegetable eater. And at some point, I'm like, I got to get this kid to get more excited about vegetables. And what did it was getting him to growing his own peas and potatoes. For him, for some reason, was like I would take him out to the potato farm, and we'd buy the seed potatoes, and he'd pick out all the ones he wanted, and he'd have his own plot. And
Brilliant.
yeah, no, it's
Yeah,
just
well, I think that we're working quite a bit with children, and I run a newsletter called Future Gardeners.
mm,
So I want to encourage as many children as possible to get into this. I feel that if we're going to rescue the world from the mess we're in, it's not going to happen through governments doing something, because they never do. But we've got to do it and take the future into our own hands. And so encouraging children, for me, is a no-brainer again. So I'm working on it, and we've got this Future Gardeners newsletter. Children love no dig because it's a lot easier for them. They have much less of weeding chore. It's more enjoyable. And I've noticed how things like potatoes, as you say, that because there's that element of surprise, and you look at the leaves and there's nothing particularly remarkable, but once you grasp them, and especially with no dig, you don't really need to dig them out. So get your hand around all the stalks at stems at the same time and pull it up gently, and whoa, you've got this bounty there. And children definitely respond to that, and also carrots, I've noticed, because again, well, me too, you don't really know what carrot is exactly there until you pull it, and that element of mostly pleasant surprise, I just adore it. And of course the flavour. When a carrot is fresh, as you know, maybe some of your listeners don't, if you've never grown a carrot and tasted it fresh from the ground, I'd urge you to do that. And even if you haven't got a garden, you can, because you could grow them in containers. So I sowed in my greenhouse. I had a container and sowed carrots in February actually this year, and we've just finished harvesting them already. So that's a nice early harvest of the flavour. And once you tasted that, a bit like you were saying, the people with their new potatoes and things, you realise there's no going back.
no,
Supermarket stuff doesn't taste the same.
no. It kind of it sets your expectations so much higher because you know what
Yeah.
what it should or could taste like. I mean, in our house, I grow peas. I grow a lot of peas, and we almost never eat cooked peas because they don't ever leave the garden. Everyone just like eats it right out of the garden because they're so unbelievably good. It's just you just
Yeah.
get
Super
excited
fresh
when
at
they're
that moment. But there's another thing also which is less obvious, and this is what I like for children, is the microbes. And the new research pointing out or discovering how the soil biome, as we call it, if you think of biome as a collection of microbes, some of your listeners might not know that word, but it's an assembly of whatever microbes meaning bacteria, and all the sort of tiny stuff, protozoa, even nematodes, whatever it might be, tiny in size, that's in your gut and also in your soil. So you call it the collection biome. So the soil biome collection of microbes is amazingly similar to the gut biome. So when you eat super healthy produce, particularly from no-dig soil, I reckon, you're automatically getting a fantastic collection of microbes that help your digestion. And this hasn't really been analysed a lot, and therefore I would say not a lot, especially in scientific terms. It's more a qualitative assessment, and I would say from my experience it really works. And from the experience of others too, people who have digestion problems, eating some freshly harvested vegetables from healthy soil, it really can help sort it out. And there is now work being done on this, and I think it's really exciting because if we can get more data, that can persuade skeptical people, or also be good for children. They could learn it in school, that kind of thing, about the wonderful connections between healthy soil and healthy food. In fact, the very first sign I put up on my market garden in 1982 was health from the land, because that's how I saw it even then. And I was following some of the early pioneers of the Soil Association in the 1940s, because they had a much clearer view of this than the Soil Association when I was starting out in the 80s. And they talked a lot about mycorrhizal fungi and the value of super fresh food, grow your own. They called it compost grown as well. The word organic wasn't existing then. That appeared in the 1960s, and it became a kind of corrupted word because it came to mean absence of synthetic chemicals, which is totally not the same as healthy compost grown food. And when I started out, as I was symbol holder soil association, and they didn't think anything of the soil being rotivated 4 times a year, and it had to be because otherwise the growers the more you rotivate, the more weeds you get. There's no doubt about that. We have a saying here, chickweed follows the rotivator. And so these guys were rotivating, and then they had to rotivate again. So there's so many weeds, and it's the only way they could control it. And the Soil Association didn't mind that. And at the time, I felt, well, this is very odd because they should be. This soil is really precious. And I was the only no-dig grower. But anyway, I just carried on quietly doing my thing. But I did notice I got many fewer weeds. I couldn't be sure at the time that it was from no-dig, but I am now. And there's, massive body of evidence backing that up. So that's where I'm grateful to have done it for so long. I didn't talk about no-dig back in the 80s, 90s, even noughties, only quite more recently. But the movement of interest in soil lately, especially, is really exciting. And I love it on social media, talking about no-dig and soil biome and microbes and all that. People are really responsive and love it. And I think that's a fantastic way of getting people on board to actually really wanting to grow their own food, because they can not only the flavour, but they get the microbes.
It's nice people are a little bit less fearful of looking at dirt as a germ and something that's
Yeah.
harmful for them too. Is like, getting your hands in the dirt and like if you pick that carrot, you just, I don't know. I've always just wiped it off on my pants and just eat it, right? Like, I don't care. I'm not gonna, and
Yeah.
I don't get sick from stuff like that. I feel like I've got a bit of an iron gut. I attribute it to that.
It's because you've got the collection of microbes in there. And I've noticed it if people are not used to this, you do need to be a bit careful at first because you haven't got the gut microbes to handle the soil microbes, you could say.
Yeah.
So if you're starting to eat fresh produce, do wash it perhaps more than I would. As time goes on, you'll find you can tolerate more, and you're more healthy for it. Your digestion becomes much stronger. Mine is incredible, actually. I wouldn't call it iron gut, but it's just really healthy. I can eat anything, actually, pretty much. Probably shouldn't say that, touch wood, but you know what I mean.
I will tell people I eat anything. I celebrate the fact that I like to test my system and keep it on its toes.
Yeah, absolutely. And there has been a fear, hasn't there, until recently, of bacteria. It was a dirty word. Now we're starting to realise, well, actually, for example, 99% of bacteria are beneficial, actually.
Yeah.
And then you've got bacteria that help plants to find nutrients and moisture through a process called rhizophagy. It was only discovered 16 years ago. So it's an ally of the whole mycorrhizal network, which is more well known, the fungi mycelia in the soil finding food for plants. And both of these networks are, in undisturbed no-dig soil, they're much stronger. So again, this is evidence now why it works better.
Yeah.
So that's why I've enjoyed the last 10 years or so, because it's been kind of vindicating a bit of what I've been doing all along and explaining my successes, you could say. It's nice to have a reason.
The concept of spreading mulch on the soil, that's something that, was it Ruth Stout?
Yes.
First suggested that. Now, I have a practice in the fall. I do straw on top of all of my beds. And I talked to a local garden shop, and they advised against it strongly and told me that's the dumbest thing that I could possibly do, because it's just gonna, why would I do that? That's silly. You don't need to do anything. And I was like, no, I'm not gonna listen to you. I'm just gonna do it. It's been massive. It's been so amazing for my soil.
But you're not getting slugs then?
No, and I don't understand why I don't, because I'm in Vancouver. I live in a pretty, it's a temperate rainforest. For whatever reason, in my garden, I don't get slugs.
It could be because you're no-dig. You're not tilling, I'm guessing.
Yeah, no, that's correct.
So therefore, you have got better fauna, like the ground beetles, because you haven't disturbed them, and they eat slug eggs. So it could be to do with that, which you wouldn't get if you were digging. But I have found mulches of hay or straw. I'm intrigued by that, because our climate, I think, is equally damp as yours.
Yeah, it's very wet here.
Yeah, I just get, what I want as a grower is close to 100% success with every sowing and planting and no damage, because otherwise it becomes unprofitable and not feasible. So I'm sowing carrots in the very early spring, and they all come up because I've got a very low population of slugs. Not through using any pellets or anything, just because it is low, and through like the ground beetles I mentioned, all that kind of thing. But also not giving them habitat. So for me, that's the key one. People look at my garden in the late winter and they say, "Well, you're not using mulch," and I say, "I am, but it's compost."
Yeah.
So yeah, different mulches. Well, that's a good one. Interesting.
I don't actively make my own compost, and the reason I don't is because I live very close to the water, and we have the town I live in. There's a pretty bad rat problem, and I've always my husband specifically is like, no, we can't have a compost because the rats are going to be here. But I don't know. After reading your book, I
Yeah.
think I need to sit down with him and have a good long conversation and
Right.
and change his mind because I'm buying my own. I haven't been making my own, so
You've got a system that works, so
yeah.
no reason not to change it. What I found though is I read Ruth Stout's book in 1980, I think, and before I started, and I thought, well, this really makes sense, and I then bought a load of old hay to spread acre mulch in my first autumn, and the following spring, most of what I planted got eaten by slugs. So it just made me think, her system, good though it is in Connecticut, it's a much drier climate there than in the UK, so that's a bit the risk of moving things. Good ideas from in one place is not always good in another.
Yeah. I have a lot of wood lice.
Right, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
They can be quite a pest, can't they?
Yeah, they sure can.
That could be related to the straw. I mean,
Yeah.
I would say the compost, you get a pretty nice balance. There's always insects. There's a bit of everything, but nothing is too out of balance, and that does make growing a lot easier because, like I say, I don't really suffer losses.
Yeah.
Touch wood. Big topic.
Well, is there anything that you were specifically interested in chatting about? Anything you think the listener should know?
Yeah. Um, I would call it myths and misconceptions. I've actually written a book with that title because I see people suffering and doing extra work for no reason because of common misunderstandings. How have these developed? It's kind of propaganda, but not so explicit as that. It's very simply, if something is said often enough, it becomes commonly believed. And one is about, I just featured it in a reel on Instagram actually, that you shouldn't plant tomatoes if the nighttime temperatures are below 10 degrees centigrade, 50 Fahrenheit. It's absolute baloney because, I've had this feedback a lot since putting out that reel. People in like Norway and Denmark, really cold climates, and putting out their tomatoes when nighttime temperatures are close to freezing. And they're saying they're all fine,
Yeah.
So where did that come from? I don't know. It's probably best not to dwell on that. But because it's said so often, people believe it, and then their hands are tied because they're waiting for the thermometer to go up at night, and they're losing time. Another one is actually hardening off. And if you're raising plants in a greenhouse or polytunnel outside, there's absolutely no need to harden off at all. I just take my plants out of the warm greenhouse, put them in the cold soil, but often put a cover over, but actually at the moment not even doing that. And plants are much hardier than we think. It would be more if you're raising them in your house in very kind of unnatural conditions. That some hardening off is necessary, but I would say a lot less than is normally recommended. It's so much work, and I see people, how much time they're spending on it. So I am always looking for quicker ways to do things. No dig is the biggest one because you're saving that big job of digging. Another one could be watering. So it's commonly said that if you water in bright sunlight, like we have at the moment, that can burn the leaves of plants. That's commonly thought, and it's just not true. If you think about it, on a sunny day, you have a thunderstorm, leaves are wet, then the sun comes out again. Well, why aren't all the leaves scorched? A lot of these common beliefs don't stand up to even a bit of common sense. So I'm looking to get to the bare bones of what really matters, and it's a bit like we were saying at the beginning. Making complex sounding things actually really simple because they are. One other one is the use of what kind of potting mix you sow seeds in. People are really hot in the UK. I don't know if it's the same in Canada. You've got to have a seed compost. And the thing about the seed compost, as they explain it, is that it's low in nutrients, claiming that seeds don't germinate in high nutrient mix, which is again absolute nonsense.
That makes no sense.
Seeds that germinate in piles of manure and that kind of thing. And what it means is you need another product, and I think this might be what behind it. It's advertising and getting people to buy more stuff, basically. So I just use one multi-purpose compost mix for both for sowing seeds and potting and everything. Makes life so much simpler. I don't have an extra product getting confusing things, but more than anything, it means that my seeds, when they come up and start growing, they don't suddenly go yellow and run out because they've run out of food, which I hear is the feedback I get so much. People saying, what's wrong with my seeds? They aren't growing. Well, I say, probably sowing the seed compost. Oh yeah, it was that. And they just don't realise, they've been told they need to do this. So I'm just trying to cut through all that sad misunderstanding that's really common and make life simpler.
I think a lot of it, like you pointed out, is to sell a product. They identify a problem that doesn't exist, so they can sell a product to people, so they can then solve it.
And that's the difference between what is commonly called organic growing, which I feel should be called just normal growing.
Yeah.
And the opposite to that in the UK at least is called conventional growing. And that, if you look at conventional in the dictionary, that means normal and natural. But that's the people who are using glyphosate, pesticides, herbicides, the whole range of poisons. And that's now officially categorized as normal and natural. So don't use that word conventional. I say they're chemical farmers, we're normal. And then related to that is what you just said there, problem solutions. So the chemical growers, that's how they work. There's a problem, there's aphids. I need a pesticide to kill the aphids. And of course, in doing that, they're going to kill the ladybirds and hoverflies at the same time. I don't know, either they don't realise that or they've been encouraged not to believe it. But with organic growing, and I would say no, that whole philosophy really, what you're looking to do is have less problems in the first place. So you need these understandings so that you can see what you need to do to have less problems, so you don't need to rush out for a solution. So it's a very different way of thinking, and that's what I was saying. I don't use any pesticides or herbicides. I don't need them. So, because I've set the garden up in a way, just like you can, how I explained, that doesn't need these nasty products.
Well, nature has a funny way of showing you how little power you actually have, and nature has a funny way of putting things into balance. When we're not poking at it and trying to mess with it, it's like, no, we need a certain amount of aphids, we need some ladybugs, we need birds, we need all these pests and things, and if we don't mess with it too much, it works properly. It works as it should.
So right, and we're finding out things now that add value to all that and make even more sense. Like I was reading recently, people who studied plant growth with and without birdsong, and how it turns out that birdsong somehow helps plants to grow, and I can't remember the exact details, but that kind of makes sense to me. And when I step out in the morning here and hear the beautiful birdsong, you can imagine the plants, because we don't really understand how plants grow, I don't think. There's a lot of more etheric stuff that is little understood. So modern science has a woeful way of dismissing stuff as woo-woo or pseudoscience when it simply can't measure it. That's really what they're saying. I get that label quite a bit.
Have you seen the video of the mushroom playing a keyboard?
Oh yeah, no, I haven't.
No, it's amazing. Like the whole world of fungi and it's amazing. I'm super excited to see where that's gonna go in the future. But I don't know how they did. Something about electrical signals firing in the mushroom. They hooked it up to some keyboard, and it played like this beautiful song. It was amazing. So, I mean, even just having birds around, morning and night, birds come into my garden and they eat bugs off of it. So from like the most simple basic standpoint, but I have no doubt that the plants hearing the song makes makes them feel good and they want to grow more or whatever it is.
And there's another one which is, related to the whole energy of how plants grow, which is something I'm getting more and more interested in, is our intention, which is actually much more powerful than most of us have been led to realize. I would say to any listeners on this subject, don't underestimate yourself and your own abilities and power to change things and to grow wonderful food. Words also are important actually in this. Don't ever say to yourself, I can't grow food, things don't grow for me, or whatever it might be. If you say that, that's kind of making it true. So be very careful and switch it around and say positive things like, I want to grow carrots, I can grow carrots, sow the seed, just do the basics right. Obviously, you've got to get your soil nice, no-dig compost mulch, you can sow carrot seeds into the compost, blah, 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 and they'll come up really beautifully. And then you start to shed those negative beliefs, but also discover the power of intention, which I feel is what you call, I think, green thumb, or we call it green finger. People who have that is because they're unconsciously sometimes, but just well in tune with natural processes and wanting them to encourage them and loving being involved. And plants, nature, soil, microbes, everything can pick up that nice feeling from us, people, and resonate with it and develop and grow. And I'm going to be now a bit outrageous, just to kind of wind up. I've got a way of increasing the energy in the soil, which is so simple that you'll never read about it because it involves no products, there's no money to be made. You just need 5 sticks and a bit of good intention, 20 minutes of your time.
Yeah.
Do it 5 times between now, early summer and the end of summer. And you can increase your soil temperature by putting 5 sticks in, so you around your property. You go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you touch the first one, and that creates an energy field. But while you're doing that, you are thinking these wonderful thoughts of abundant growth, strength, peace, love, beauty, harmony in my space, and spreading good vibes all around. And I was doing this actually in a group of people once, because I do what's called an energy gardening course, and one of the ladies was a little bit psychic. I mean, when we touch the final of the 5 sticks, but the first one we put in, you touch it, and that makes the field. She just fainted flat on the ground.
Really?
So she was okay, but there's real energy here. I can sort of feel it. I'm aware of it, but I'm not a deeply psychic person. But I definitely get it, and I just offer that one as a thought. There's a lot more things like that. I've written a book called New Energies for Gardening. I sell it from my website. Check it out. It's not expensive. It's £5 or something, and we ship it to your part of the world as well. There's so much to find out and explore.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a height of arrogance to assume that we understand everything about the world around us. And like, if nothing else, being positive and focusing on being open to things you don't understand and enjoying what you're doing, like, how is that a bad thing, right?
That's it, to be open. And that's where I feel the people who attack me when I put up a post about, say, magnetizing water, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And they're just cryptic comments, woo-woo, pseudoscience, just dismissing.
Yeah.
They just got closed minds. That's what they're saying. That's what they're showing. And I feel sad. I feel sorry for them. But I am meeting a lot of interest in these approaches, which I haven't spoken of. I've been doing it for quite a long time and speaking more about it now. I have to be a little bit careful because I don't want to be labelled a complete crank and then people don't look at the no-dig side of things as well. But we need both, basically.
I think so. I think the more you open your mind and your heart to stuff like that, I just don't see any negative to it. I mean, It doesn't hurt. What are you going to do? Sit in front of the TV and watch a show you've already seen before? Like, I don't know. Go put sticks in the ground. I think I saw a video you did on that. You posted on social media on the putting the sticks in the ground for.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I don't think I put a video on YouTube, but I've done a reel on Instagram.
Yeah. Okay.
I find the comments on YouTube can be, I don't know if it's bots even, they can be really quite hurtful and negative. So I'm a bit more careful what I say on YouTube, but even so, I'm getting there.
You've got close to 1 million followers now. There's going to be some people that are just you're not going to reach, but I think you're reaching a lot of people, and a lot of people are doing things differently because of all the work you're doing, and it's nice to see.
Happy about that. That's been my ambition. To help people grow food more easily, So if you're one of those, well done, and keep on exploring. There's more things you can find out.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I've really enjoyed talking to you, and next time I'm in the UK, I'd love to pop by and check out your garden.
Oh, that would be a pleasure. Yeah. Do that.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks, Tiffany.
Okay.